New Mexico Public Education Secretary Dr. Arsenio Romero, thank you so much for joining me here on New Mexico in Focus.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you for having me here this morning. It's a beautiful morning, and I'm really happy to be here.
Great. Now, when New Mexico In-Depth's Trip Jennings interviewed Attorney General Raul Torres in these same chairs 2 weeks ago, Torres told him in his words that it's clear that not enough progress has been made in the state's response to the Yazzie Martinez ruling. And he added that it's, quote, very far from meeting its constitutional obligations to educate all students. How would you respond to that assessment?
You know, that's an interesting statement because, one, we have made tremendous progress. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done. But at the same time, we have a long ways to go, and I acknowledge that. There's a lot of work to be done. But when we think about what's happening in New Mexico over the last year or so, it's really unprecedented across the nation. We're doing things in New Mexico that no other state is doing. We really take this concept of cradle to career. These are things that are giving students opportunities, children across New Mexico, that they've never had before. So for example, we are a state where no matter where you're at in the state of New Mexico, whether you're right here in the metro area or you're in Animas, New Mexico, you have the ability to be able to have access to preschool education, to be able to get access to educators, to be able to learn those pre-reading skills to make you that much more successful once you get into K-12. And then let me go to the other side of things. We're the state in the nation that allows for every resident in New Mexico to go to college for free. This is huge for us as a state. And then let's talk about K-12 education. We have been investing greatly in the opportunities for students to have access to highly qualified teachers. Those teachers are being trained right now in the science of reading, which we're already seeing tremendous results in.
Sure, and we can talk about more of those specifics in general, but back to the impact on the state's response to Yazzie Martinez specifically and the Attorney General's posture on it. The Attorney General told us that he wants to take over litigation in the case to speed up progress, in his words. What is the administration and PED's response to that idea?
So when we think about the Attorney General, you know, these are our lawyers, and what his job is to be able to litigate cases. And I want to be able to support him. I want to be able to, for us to be in a partnership with each other. I'm an educator. I've been doing this for close to 28 years. When I think about all the teachers, the principals, the superintendents across the state, that's what they do. They educate students. And so there's been this new term that I've been using lately is really education is calling. And what that means is that we all have a responsibility in educating students across New Mexico. That includes myself as the Secretary of Education, but it also includes parents and students, citizens across New Mexico. There's even a part for the Attorney General to be a part of that. I haven't been able to talk to the Attorney General about this yet. He hasn't reached out to us yet. I'd love to be able to have that conversation with him to see how we can partner together to make this happen for the students across New Mexico.
If he doesn't reach out and he still tries to take over this case, would you support that decision? Would the administration fight him on that and try to retain control?
You know what, it's not so much of, for me, a question of whether he takes over the case or not. I believe that the lawyers are going to continue to litigate this. This is what they do. And what worries me about that, though, is that dollars are going to litigating this case. And many of those dollars could be going into the classroom. And so I think that's another question we have to ask is, do we want to spend years litigating this case so that, and these dollars are going towards lawyers to be able to prosecute this case, or do we want those dollars to go into New Mexico classrooms? Myself, I want them to go into New Mexico classrooms.
Now, we can stay talking about the legal aspect of this just for 1 second. I wanted to ask about the state and your department's posture towards the case in court. In March of 2020, the state filed a motion to dismiss the case, arguing that it had reached compliance because it had created, in its mind, a fundamentally different public education system for those at-risk students mentioned in the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit. It also argued that actual student outcomes were irrelevant to compliance. Is your department's primary objective to reach the legal definition of compliance, or is it to facilitate systemic changes that create an equitable working environment for all students?
You know, throughout my career, I've tried to go into the places that need me the most. I've gone into some very needy classrooms and districts where students are requiring more opportunity, more resources, more support. And in every one of those places, I've been able to be successful. And it's not just me, it's the teachers, it's the community around me. I don't see this as being any different. So absolutely, I agree that we have some work to do in New Mexico to be able to provide better outcomes for students across New Mexico. And that work will really never end. So with that, I take on this challenge. I'm looking forward to it. I don't argue that there is a need for this, because I know there is. When we think about students that are Native, when we think about students with special education, come from low-income homes, bilingual students, they need more supports. I do want to thank our legislature and our governor. They've been able to provide record-breaking investments into education, over $1 billion over this last year to be able to do that. We're on the right path. When we think about other states that have done some of this work, I know that sometimes what comes up is Mississippi, and we call it the Mississippi Miracle. It wasn't a miracle, though. They were very strategic in what they did. They also knew that there was a timeline to that. It took them over 10 years to be able to get to where they're at now. I would argue that we are doing the same work and more, and we're doing it on a faster timeline. So I'm really excited with the work that's happening across New Mexico. I'm very proud of our classroom teachers, proud of our principals across the state, and of course our superintendents and school boards. We're all doing this work together. I'd love to be able to have the Attorney General come in with us and be a part of that team.
Last question on that motion to dismiss back in 2020. That was 3.5 years ago, before you were secretary. But what is now the administration's position on the case? Does it still belong in the courtroom?
It belongs in a space where we're going to continue to make improvements. Now, the question of whether it belongs in the courtroom, I have to leave that up to the judges. I have to leave that up to the lawyers to be able to litigate this case. What I know is that we're going to continue to move forward to be able to educate students in the best possible way, to provide better outcomes, to provide more opportunity. That's the job I took when I first started teaching 28 years ago. That's the same responsibility I have today as the Secretary of Education.
Now, the court identified 3 key areas that were lacking and therefore contributed in the court's mind to inequities among students. The first, basic materials, textbooks, technology, things like that. Second, curriculum, meaning programs and services that meet the needs of all students. And third, experienced and well-trained teachers. Where is PED from your perspective in terms of meeting the court's findings in those 3 specific areas?
All right, you're going to have to help me with those 3. I want to make sure I talked about all of them. So the first one is around technology and resources. So over the last few years, there has been a record investment in technology across New Mexico. So you can go into any classroom in New Mexico and you're going to see students have access to laptops and technology. We've been able to really provide stable internet access in so many parts of New Mexico. We're not there yet, but we are in a whole different place than we were before the pandemic. When we think about the partnerships we have in building technology and connecting our traditional core classrooms to technology, it's never happened before. Our students are being able to leave us with skills that I never had as a graduate when I left school. So they're in a good place for that. The second was around curriculum.
Yes.
And so we have really invested and researched around what is the best type of curriculum that's going to be available for our students. And it's really this research-based curriculum that ensures that students are having the best possible tools and resources for that. For example, the science of reading. We have been able to really go in and dive deep in how students learn how to read. We've been able to look at the national research. We've been able to visit campuses across the country, and we have definitely seen a proven method for how this happens. From when students come in as 2, 3, 4-year-olds, come in as kindergartners, first, second, third graders, and we are implementing that now. And the last is
teachers.
We've made some tremendous gains in making sure that every classroom has highly qualified teachers in New Mexico. I've been able to talk to dozens of HR offices across New Mexico and districts, and anecdotally, what they've been able to tell me is that they've been able to fill positions in the last year that they haven't been able to do for the last 10 years. And so really proud of that work. But we're also really investing in the pipelines for teachers.
Keeping those things in mind, is the state, in your mind, in compliance with the Yazzie Martinez ruling now?
It's an interesting question because sometimes when we talk about that, it's like check boxes. But it's not as simple as that. It's going to be work that we always have to do. When we have our new 5-year-olds that come in as kindergartners, we have to be able to really design program around them. And as they become first graders, second graders, third graders, into middle school, into high school, we're always thinking about what are our kindergartners now today doing, and what are they going to need as they are in high school or as graduates? The answer is never the same. So it's a lot more complicated than just checking boxes to say whether we accomplish something or not. We always have to be evolving. And when I think back about what teaching was like when I first started, it is very different now. When I was a principal first starting out, it's very much different to being a principal today. Same thing with being a superintendent. So that answer to that question is going to be different every time you ask me.
Have there been enough systemic changes, maybe I can phrase it a little differently, that will allow districts and teachers to adjust and improvise with those students now and give them that equitable education that is mandated in the court ruling?
Absolutely. I mean, we have been really investing in this and really trying to evolve and adapt through dollars, the resources. So just a couple of those ideas around, this is a time where there's more time that students are able to spend with teachers than ever before. I want to thank the legislator for really increasing instructional time. We've done this through programs like K3 plus, K5 plus, K12 plus. This last year with House Bill 130, we were able to increase the school day an hour and week. These are investments that are going to pay off. Nobody ever argues that more time with the teacher is a bad thing. That's a good thing, and we're starting to see those things really have an impactful outcome.
I want to talk about something that you mentioned just a little while ago, and something that we've heard from people interested in this case, the need for more Native American teachers,
right,
so that Indigenous students can see someone and learn from someone who they identify with. Do you agree that is an important variable in education equity?
Absolutely. It is so important when a student comes into a classroom, they see people that look like them, talk like them, have a background like them, have a history like them. And in that program like Educator Fellows, one of the things that I noticed over time is that if I go back 15 years ago, and I was a school principal and I had a second grade open, I probably had about 30 applicants, 50 applicants for that job. Over the last 5 years, it's turned out to be, I would be lucky if I had one. But now we're starting to turn the tide where what I'm getting reports back from HR offices is that we're starting to see 5, 6, 10 applicants for a job. But the other thing I had to really adjust to is that even when I hired a teacher, those teachers were hopefully going to stay with us for 15, 20, 25 years. And that kind of changed. It was a little bit of a mind shift where I had to realize teachers may only stay with me for 3 to 5 years. But what we're finding in programs like Educator Fellows and some of the other pipeline programs is that we're going into those communities and we're able to actually work with people that live there. And they want to invest their whole career in the communities they live in. So now we're starting to see back again those conversations where these people are going to be with us for 15, 20, 30 years, which is amazing.
The PED website has an entire page dedicated to its response to the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit, but when you click on what's labeled as the timeline, since the orders, there's nothing listed past 2020. Does your department have a concrete response timeline with specific goals?
Absolutely. So, the public education department did a lot of work to be able to create a plan around, supporting the requirements of Martinez-Yazzie. When I look at that now, we're talking about over 75% of our students actually fall under the student groups that the Martinez-Yazzie lawsuit talks about. To me, that's everybody. So as I move forward, I want to be able to improve outcomes, opportunities, educational environments for every student in New Mexico. So we are currently updating our strategic plan, which fits right into what the Martinez-Yazzie lawsuit is really requiring of us. But we're looking at it from a different lens. We're not doing this because the lawsuit says we have to do this. We're doing this because it's what's right for all students across New Mexico, all families across New Mexico. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you soon. We're at the tail end of really these putting everything together. And it's really going to be able to allow us to be able to align not only at the public education department, but all schools, all charters across New Mexico. We see the path forward together.
When will that new delineated plan be available to the public?
Soon, in the fall. I'd love to give you an exact date, but it's within the next few weeks or months or so.
Okay. Now, when was the last time that the state's legal team met with the Yazzie Martinez plaintiffs, and what happened in that meeting?
I'm not, so that's not my end of things. You know, that is definitely something for the lawyers to continue to litigate and work through. My job is to make sure that we continue to educate students, to give them the best possible, environments possible for learning. I get to, I try to, keep up with that as much as I can, but that's not where I want to spend my energy. They're going to continue to litigate. I'm going to continue to educate.
No, respectfully, the lawyers do work for you, though. As secretary of the department, do you have any strategic meetings with them, or is that?
Sure. Yeah, we update each other on a regular basis, and so through that, it's me really keeping informing them of some of the work that we're doing, some of the data that we have, and making sure that we continue to talk about outcomes that are happening, things that we're still struggling through to be able to get into place. And so it's a back and forth conversation we have with each other. Absolutely.
Okay. How do you view your department's obligation to be transparent with the public, not just with the timeline, right, not just with accomplishments, but with the response plan and the work that is actively being done?
Absolutely. I would say that's probably one of the main pillars I have, and it's part of the responsibility. I want to make sure that we are able to be transparent with every family across New Mexico. And so you've already started to be able to see some of that transparency happening as we are really updating all of our software, our data, and our reporting across the agency. We want to make sure that it's easy for parents to be able to see what's going on in their child's school, to be able to look at the data when it comes to the district, the school, and their individual child, and then be able to help them support and asking questions so they can build a relationship with their child's school, to be able to talk about what's happening there. We've been able to roll out Vistas. This is our new software system and data reporting system that we have, and it's going to continue to evolve. It's a brand new environment, and we're making improvements on it every single day. And in fact, this week is the 40th day of school. It's amazing, like already a fourth of the school year has already gone by. So this week is actually a big reporting week where we're able to look at so many different points of data that will allow us to be able to make decisions about what we do with the next quarter and the rest of the school year.
Thank you. Public Education Secretary,
Awesome.
Dr. Arsenio Romero. Thanks so much.
Lou, thank you so much for having me here today, and I'd love to be able to come back. We'll keep talking about updates in public education.
Absolutely. Happy to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.